It is the Fetch Inside the Eye live intelligent media for the politically aware. Joining us in India, I believe it's Hyderabad, but don't quote me on that, is Fabian Fjalling. I can never get those accents correct, but they aren't going to shoot me. At least they're going to have a hard time trying. And anyways, great to have you back, Fabian. If you don't know Fabian, everybody, he's been on the show probably 5 or 6 or 7 times over the years. I don't know. It's a reasonable amount. He's joined us from Sweden, where he was an activist. He kind of was a media activist type of guy, and did a few interesting things back then in the day. He's gone on to becoming an international pilot, which is a great little career, flying, I think, 737s back for the day in China, and now he's flying for an airline somewhere closer to me. That's all I'll say. And he's joining us from India. And Fabian, welcome back to Inside the Eye Live, and thanks for checking in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome to have you too, man. So anyways, been a long time. I think last time we spoke, you were in China. Was that correct?
That is probably correct. Yeah, I don't quite remember, but a few years ago.
It was China. I believe you were in China. And then just to kind of run down what's been happening, I'm kind of curious. Being you and me are both kind of international guys, we kind of travel a lot. You probably travel a little bit more than me. You get paid to do it, though. What was it like for you guys in your business during, I guess, our little pandemic from 2021 out to, let's say, 2023? What was it like? What was the industry like for you guys? Because we have a lot of reports of airplanes crashing in America, especially in the private pilot, market. It seems like a small airplane goes down every week. So we're losing a lot of planes, and of course, everybody suspects why. So we're just kind of curious, how did things work out for you guys, and how did it all work out for you guys in the pilot business?
Well, for me personally, I was sent home the first day of COVID in China. It took maybe a few days, and then we were all sent home all expats from China was sent home, and Then they sent us home in my company. Then they sent us home on unpaid leave, and that was kind of unsustainable. After a while, I said I couldn't take any more unpaid leave because I need to start looking for other jobs. So they fired me, but then of course this hysteria with vaccination hit the world, and I refused to inject experimental stuff into my body. So that meant I was jobless for 2.5 years.
Everybody, fly with Fabian. He ain't gonna. He's clean. Okay, go fly with Fabian. We can make an airline for you. Fly with Fabian, man. It's got a good ring to it.
Exactly. Yeah, but I think it was a wake up call for a few people. I mean, I've talked to some people after that realized that they had been conned. They. I've had a few colleagues at least that understand that they are affected by the injection, and even their doctors say that it's probably because of the vaccination. I flew with one first officer who he had gone full conspiracy theorist after the COVID hysteria. But in the beginning, he was one of those. He said that young, highly educated people are the ones that are the easiest to fool. And he said, I was one of them. I have a degree in I don't remember what, and he's a pilot, and he took all the injections he was supposed to, and now he's sick. He said that he realized himself that he had been one of the easily controlled people. But now he's full conspiracy.
I know you didn't, but did you say, there's this guy, Fetch, he's got a great show. Should have listened to him, man. He was great.
Yeah. Another thing I have to give you all correct on, which is many years ago, you told me that Boeing is going to go down because of their policy in recruiting. And, I'm not saying they're going down, but it's not going so well for them now anyway.
I was there's a place here called Jarir. Have you been into Saudi yet? Have they flown you? Let you come into Riyadh?
I fly only.
Okay, there's a store here called Jarir, and Jarir is owned by a very wealthy Indian family trading company, and it's kind of like a office supply. It's like my favorite store. It's a bookstore upstairs and office supplies and all kinds of other cool stuff, electronics. and it's Indian, right? And I was talking to this guy, because I'm getting my laptop fixed before I leave. Not fixed, but I'm getting my Huawei, so it works with Google. And we were just joking. I said, the problem with America is we have this diversity and equity, man. And I said, one of those is Boeing. I said, Boeing, they actually hired Indian coders. I said, these guys don't know crap, man. He said, they actually engineered the planes to fly straight into the ground. And, that's actually what they did. I don't know if you followed that story, but their algorithms literally flew the 737-800 Maxes into the ground. That's how stupid they are.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was diversity.
Encoders who did the MCAS system, who the computer system behind MCAS then?
That was a company, an Indian coding company based out in New York.
I didn't know that.
And it's like, it's like, what do they know about American aeronautics? You know what I mean? And they literally, it was a strange situation, and so we were just joking about it. I said, let's code like the new E-Formula cars, we'll code it to like steer straight into the wall, kind of like Boeing airplanes. They fly straight into the ground. Good for ticket sales, man. Yeah. So anyways, you made it through. You got through clean. Obviously now your industry is a lot smarter. The people are much smarter now. Going to be harder to fool them next time.
I hope so. You never know. It was a bizarre time so I don't know if this comes something new and suddenly everybody are brainwashed again, but I hope not. I hope people have learned.
So how is the industry right now for you guys? Has it made a good comeback? Travel is clean?
The problem is that the manufacturer can't deliver aircrafts. I think a lot of companies would like to buy more aircraft if they were just allowed. So that's the bottleneck, I would say. And if they can be able to start delivering aircraft, then there will probably be a bottleneck of people to get people to fly on the aircraft. But so far, I think the market is going quite well for pilots. It's not a hysterical, lack of pilots yet, but I think it's coming to that point.
How about the balance between pilots, health-affected pilots? Have they changed the health regimen to get more pilots to be certified to fly? Because you guys are like the most health-checked people on the planet. Before all this went down, have they changed the protocols to allow pilots to fly more than they would have in the past?
Yes, as far as I have, I haven't really checked it out myself, but I've just heard that FAA, when you do the ECG, they have some time that a pulse needs to spread over the heart to be a good heart. And they changed the time allowance for that, so that they now allow a little bit slower spread of a pulse to the heart. Before they took that as a sign of a heart that is not really functioning correctly. But now they're like, we ain't got any functioning hearts. Change the protocol. Exactly. To make more people pass this. But I don't know the details there. I just heard that part. I'm pretty sure it's true that they changed the limits for the ECG. Yeah.
See, I'm playing lawyer. See, I already knew the answer, so I was just testing you.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, he knows that one. Okay, good. We got that question in. I'm running out of my lawyer questions, though. That's for sure. So what have you been up to, though? What have you been up to then? You've been flying for now how long in the Middle East?
It's a year now. I've been flying here. I flew for another company in Europe for a year also when I got back after COVID. But it was 2.5 years of unemployment, which was, a bit tough. But all companies at that time you have to have your COVID certificate. And I never thought about forging one. I think there are quite a few people who just made up a certificate. I flew with one first officer. He thought it was a really good time during COVID because he forged all the kinds of certificates and traveled the world when nobody traveled. So he said it was very easy to travel because no one else was traveling, and he had all kinds of certificates that he had made himself.
And nobody questioned it. He was able to pass in and go through all these airports, huh?
Yeah, if he was in one country, he made sure he made a certificate from some obscure country that was not common in whatever country he was going into. And they let him in,
Yeah, it wasn't a bad idea. But of course, he's
No?
there with the airline, so it was a cheap flight also. It wasn't going to cost him too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how about the politics now? You stay in touch with your homeland in Sweden? What's happening in Sweden and anything of that nature?
Well, I've kind of resigned to that Sweden is ruled by idiots. So it's kind of some people say that you should follow it a little bit better but I just get angry. As soon as the television is on for 5 minutes, I get angry. Either it's some entertainment program that's brainwashing people into accepting stupid ideas, or it's news that is not news. It's just something they make up to make people think things. And I mean, Ukraine is I guess the top item, and Sweden is so brainwashed. If you're for more weapons and money into Ukraine, you're a good person. If you think it's a bad idea to pour money and weapons into Ukraine, then you're an evil person. That's the narrative in Sweden.
Obviously, as just a citizen, how can we have opportunity if all of our money is going to like a missile? You know what I mean? That one missile could pay for how much for a child in school, a class or something, or 15 classes for that one stupid missile. And in 5-10 minutes, the missile's gone and all the productive value's gone. And now the students still have nothing. And people should be saying, no, enough is enough. Well, we don't need these weapons of war anymore. Enough. We're tired.
Exactly. And Sweden, they are shutting down hospitals, and we have people who are homeless, and they don't have money for it. But now with Ukraine, there's no limit to how much money they find. I don't understand where they find all that money. They sent now I think it's $7 billion. Little Sweden have sent $7 billion to Ukraine, and we know it goes to, maybe some of it goes to killing Russians, if that's a good thing. But a lot of it goes for luxury villas for the ruling elite in Ukraine.
You have the same issue like money laundering, where they're saying the money is getting kicked back to your politicians as we have in the States?
I don't know. I don't have any own research that points to that, but it would not surprise me at all. I mean, why are they otherwise so focused on pouring money into Ukraine? There must be something that some personal gain somewhere for them. But I don't have any. I haven't discovered any indication myself.
Okay, it's not like a public discourse. Like in America, it's public discourse, where people say, look, this is just a money laundering operation, all the way to the top. It's just money laundering. So you don't have that as part of your public discourse then.
No, I don't think. I think there's a minority of people in Sweden who suspects that it's a money laundering operation. Most people think if you're a good person, you give Ukraine money. It's really strange.
Right. It is strange, and at least we have Trump. He's not doing very well with this Israeli Gaza thing, but at least he has some apparent common sense. But we'll see. You know what I mean? I don't trust these globalists, and Trump is one of them. At the end of the day, I don't trust all of them, so we'll just have to keep monitoring. How about the political situation on the immigration now in Sweden? Is this? I heard you had some nationalists coming in. You're starting to get a little bit tougher with some of these migrants. What's happening there?
I think it's mostly window dressing. I mean, I think we gave another 70,000 permanent residencies so far this year or something like that. It's still going on. So it's I mean, if you compare to Trump, it took him a week, and then the flow over the border stopped. That has not happened yet in Sweden. They say that we don't take any asylum seekers anymore. Okay, but we have a lot of so-called family reunions and other reasons for people to come to Sweden, So the flow is still ongoing. Now, I think 4 out of every 10 people in Sweden have heritage outside of Sweden. And they are saying that birth rates are down to, I think it's 1.4 now. And then they are, of course, also in that statistics. A Somali with a Swedish passport and 10 kids is, of course, lifting that statistic. So if you look at ethnic Swedes, I would say it's below 1 now. That's my guess, though. But they hide the catastrophe by including non-Swedes into the statistics.
Yeah, that's a good point. Didn't even think of that. Yeah, because some of these, I know, Here in the Middle East, as you know, you're in the Middle East. They like to have big families.
Yeah, which is
10,
healthy.
15.
Yeah.
But they do want 3 to 5. They see 3 to 5 as a good, healthy family.
Yeah.
Nowadays, back in the day, 10 was great. I'm with a family. There's like 16 kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But 3 to 5 is still considered as very healthy. I grew up in a house with four boys, so yeah, I can relate to that. It's a lot of kids around and a lot of things to do, right? You could get into trouble, get into fights, do all kinds of fun things, play some games, get some games going, basketball, whatever. You can't do that with one kid. Kind of
no. And people are so focused on their professional career that they don't have time for family, and that is going to kill Sweden. That attitude that career is more important than family.
And it's not just Sweden, though. Singapore just signed, they came out with a huge statement about their birth rates have collapsed.
Yeah.
Philippines has set out, I think, on just maybe 3 weeks ago or maybe a month ago, they put out an alert saying, hey, look, we're losing all our people. We lost almost 250,000 births and deaths between the two last year. It's a huge problem. So Korea problem, China's got a problem. Everybody has a problem except for the African nations for some reason.
They did not vaccinate a lot in Africa. That is probably a contributing factor also. All the highly, in quotation marks, highly developed countries, they were eager to get this injection, and I'm sure it affects fertility. Yeah,
they've actually proven it now. Yeah. I would have to do a whole show on that, and I've got tons of data that I pull. It's just we did COVID too much, for a while there, but it's still for me a fascinating thing. For me, I don't know about you, I've lost so far about 10 people in a close to extended network. Small extended, not a major extended. That's a lot of people in a year and a half. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I went 30 years without losing anybody. All of a sudden, I've lost over 10 people, and I've got one of my colleagues, his mother, just had a double mastectomy cancer. And I'm like, you know what? I bet you that's the COVID. I bet you that's a turbo cancer from the COVID.
Yeah. And
it's man.
That's also being hidden by the attitude, by the health system that no, it doesn't have anything to do with the vaccination. That's the basic attitude. I have also people in my close proximity who are severely affected by this experiment, but they don't see it. They don't understand that it has anything to do with it.
That's the sad part. A lot of these people just don't realize it. You know what I mean? They just don't get it. I want to change gears a little bit. Let's have a little fun today. What is it like to be a pilot? If people want to be a pilot and go out there and travel the world, what's it like being a pilot? Really big time commercial airline pilot. What's it like? I mean, just tell us, kind of share some of your stories here. What's it like for people?
Yeah. Of course, I've
heard a lot of fascinating stories, by the way. You guys can be kind of wild at times, but you're not supposed to get in those on public airways. But, I've heard some crazy stories, to say the least.
Yeah, I can tell you that my career has been pretty void of that kind of crazy stories, I would say. I have been...
so you're confirming them, okay? You just confirmed it.
Okay. It's a pretty lonely job. It looks glamorous and so on, but you also have to realize that you always have another first officer to fly with. You have always different crew. I haven't done long hauling yet, so it might be a different story there, that you go to a destination and you have a few days together. But it's also the social part of being a pilot can be a little bit, you become a little bit of a loner, because you meet so many but you never, then you meet one person, then it goes months before you meet them again. So you hardly ever go into any deeper than the initial introduction part of a relationship, so to say, with a colleague or so on. While as if you have a job at an office, that this guy has, his son graduated from high school last week or whatever. While as you don't have that kind of knowledge about your colleagues here, I would say. And you sit by yourself in your hotel room, like I do now, quite a bit. so it's not
like, you know what, I'm bored. Let me see if I can get on ITEL today.
Yeah.
Let me talk to somebody.
Yeah, exactly. But the job itself is fun. I mean, it's the craftsmanship of flying is fun. I mean, I'm a former military pilot, and I thought that being an airline pilot will be completely boring when it comes to the actual flying. But no, it's not. It's still good fun, and I've done it for 30 years now, or 35 years, I think it is. Yeah. So it is a fun job. Sorry?
I thought you were younger than that. So yeah, you've been in this business a really long time.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, what can I say about more? But I mean, also, you have a job because you have a certain ability, which not everybody has. So not everybody are suited to become pilot, not even if they get all the training they can get. So, and for that, you get fairly well paid. A normal day at work for a pilot is a fairly easy day. You don't have to go to the top of your capacity. It's not a lot of stress, a lot of, what's it called? Pressure of performing. Like, for instance, if you're a stockbroker, you're probably under pressure every day to perform. Whereas for us, a good day is a day that nothing happens. No reports. It's just a normal nothing happened day. And that's not really what we paid for. We were paid for what we can do if things go wrong. So in that
you're
case,
paid for you're a contingency. You're paid on contingency, not on your actual performance day in and day out.
Yeah, you can say that. Like I had my daughter. It's one company where we could have our friends or family could come in flight deck, and she came with me on a trip, and she said, "But you're not doing much. You're just sitting there chilling and chatting," she said. And that's probably how we don't look into. You don't understand. There's a lot of rules and knowledge behind this very easy day. But still, I mean, it is easy when nothing happens. If you're on top of your capacity on a normal day, you should not be a pilot because you should have capacity.
What's the scariest thing you've ever had happen to you as a pilot?
The scariest was my first flight as a captain trainee.
Really? First as a captain trainee, the very first.
Yeah.
So okay, go ahead. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. It was. I didn't believe it was happening. You know, we start rolling down the runway, and you always calculate a speed at which is the latest time to start braking if you're not going to go up into the air. And the faster it goes, the faster you are, the closer you are to this speed, the more serious the problem need to be for you to reject. If it's below 80 knots, you reject for almost everything. If it's above 80 knots up to this decision speed, which is V1 speed, then it needs to be serious problems for you to reject the takeoff because it's a lot of risk to stop the aircraft also. And just before V1, the cabin crew calls, and then they have a special that ding many times. So you get a ding, 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 and then they start banging on the door. And then I look down and I see smoke coming in under the door. And it's really pouring in smoke from the cabin into the flight deck. And that is really serious to have a fire on board. So we declared emergency and turned back quickly. But it turned out it was just the air conditioning system that malfunctioned and started. It had been, the engines had been cleaned and some detergent had got into the air conditioning packs and got injected into the cabin. But it filled the cabin with smoke, and it's a pretty serious situation to have a fire on board if it would have been a fire.
Thanks. Well, guys, Fabian Fjalling, commercial airline pilot, flying here in the Middle East. Back with more right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back. It's the Fetch Inside the Eye Live. I've got a cute little cat here, everybody. She just gave birth. She's very proud. And she's now hanging out with me for some reason, not the baby. So she's very happy. She's usually not with me like this, man. But she's just like, yeah, I finished. Okay, I'm with you now. So anyways, Fabian, I don't know how many kittens. They just came here about an hour or two ago. 3 hours ago, something like that. So I have to go check them out after the show. Anyway, Fabian Fjalling, everybody. He is a former activist, media activist out of Sweden. Used to do, I don't know what you would call that, almost like media ambush type of thing. I'm not sure what you called what you did back in the day.
Guerrilla journalism, maybe.
But it was kind of like media. That's kind of a media. Is that kind of a good term though? Media. What would you call that? What did you do?
Well, what we did was that we called people of influence. At that time, it was still possible to get hold of the editor of a newspaper or a journalist who wrote an article or politicians. But I think after we did that, they started to have some barriers. You always go through a switchboard, and they have some public relation officer you had to talk to first, and so on. But at that time, we could get a hold of people, and we called them as just a concerned citizen. We were very polite and but we asked sharp questions that are very difficult for corrupt politicians to answer. And one core thing was that if there is Swedish people, and if there's not a Swedish people, why do we have what is Sweden going to be if we don't have a Swedish people? And they're kind of a bit deeper questions we asked to politicians, and they always turned out to have no thoughts at all about what our questions. And we publish it on YouTube. The whole media in Sweden went into a panic over our interviews, because they never knew when they were talking to a reader, if this was going to end up on YouTube. And we got so many listeners on our YouTube channel, even though we were shadow banned and suppressed, we still got millions of views, that eventually the government shut us down. They had a meeting with all the Google and YouTube and Facebook and told them that if you don't shut them down, we're going to start making laws limiting your operations. So it took, after that, it took a few weeks, and then we were completely erased from internet. So I kind of...
It's like...
Sorry?
Couple weeks. It's like, that's nothing, man. You were like, all this work and it's gone in 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, it was I think it was like 500 interviews or something like that. I got a letter from our internet service provider who said that you are legally responsible for the material you publish. We behold the right to stop providing the service if we suspect that you are doing illegal publications. And I tried to contact them and ask, what is it you suspect is illegal in what we have published? And they said, we cannot, we can only refer to the letter we have sent. The services.
I'm curious, you mentioned 500. That's a huge number. Do you have these still on file somewhere?
Yeah, they are. I don't have them, but some of the others have them. I have a few of them, but it's so much work to put it up again. That is, none of us have done it. There was a lot when we knew that we were going to be shut down. We told our listeners that, listen, here's a link to all our material. Download it and upload it if we get erased. We got erased, and other people took our material and uploaded it again, so you could still find our material. But now they have also been scrubbed from the internet. Now you can't find any of our material on the internet, even though we have people.
This almost, Fabian, it almost sounds to me like this is almost like a commercial offering, where we could almost aggregate, 7 to 15 of these top interviews into an aggregate thing and almost sell the thing. You know what I mean? As a historical document would be kind of an interesting angle to take.
Yeah, that's true. They could probably. It's just that I did that for a couple of years, and it was really stressful for my family. And after you kind of feel that, okay, I've shown that we don't have a democracy in Sweden. That's it. I've shown it. I'm done. But yeah, maybe. I think there's a lot of people who say that when they listen to our stuff and then saw what happened, they realized, okay, our democracy is just a sham. It's just theater to keep the masses docile.
It's been years since I dealt with much in Sweden. I forget the name of the party, the National Socialist Party. What were they called?
Sweden
In
Democrat?
Sweden? Are they? No. The smaller fringe group.
National Democrats, maybe.
No. Even smaller than that.
The Nordic Resistance, Nordic Resistance Movement.
The what?
The Nordic Resistance Movement.
Nordic, yes, you got it. That's the one. Nordic Resistance. Are they still going? Are they still a viable force? Not really a force per se, but a viable, let's just say, communication tool in Sweden?
One star of honor is that they have been labeled a terrorist organization by the United States. No
way.
Yeah.
I had all of them on my show. How would they be terrorists?
Yeah, I know. Dumb. They're very, very sympathetic people. They're just very clear about the Jews. You cannot be clear about the Jews because then you are easily labeled a terrorist.
Yeah, this is an issue, honestly, that moving forward, all of us still have to confront, especially us in America. I mean, we're the ones that enable it. The Americans enable it, by kowtowing to this group and then using the might of the United States to impose these agendas. It's really incumbent upon America to put an end to this nonsense. And hopefully with what's going on in Gaza, we still have another 15, 20 years, honestly, to go. Because the new generation is not the old generation, and this new generation, you're not going to sway them. So it's going to change, but it may be another half generation away.
It's so tragic.
This old, yeah. But, Netanyahu's old, Trump's old.
Before before it stops, hundreds and thousands of people have been slaughtered.
It's unfortunate, yes. I mean, that's an understatement, but you know what I mean? It's like you said, it is what it is. And it's honestly up to the Americans to take care of all that issue. Back over to now just the airline industry. We're just going to bounce around because, hey, we got an hour. And you mentioned the diversity. I know we had discussions about Boeing. Boeing's gone on this diversity overhaul. Do you find, when you look at diversity, the way they sell this thing in industries like yours, they want all of the staff to represent the customers that you have, which means you'd have to have probably 40, 50 types of staff to show inclusivity because, you're serving everything from India to Qatar to Oman to Saudi to Americans, Europeans, you name it. You're a major international client. Can you imagine, does the, I don't want to go into your airline, but in general, do you find that DEI has made its way into the recruitment hiring practices of airlines?
I'm pretty sure it has in the United States. What I hear without being there is that, yes, there's DEI in the United States. I've heard stories about people who have very, very superficial grasp of aerodynamics who still can land a seat in Delta. And that would not be the case if it was not a minority group. Whether it's the case in the Middle East, it is a very diverse workforce, but I don't think they have any of those, what's it called, inclinations. I don't think they hire on skin color or group identity. I think they actually hire on competence and trying to pay as little as possible also, of course. So if they can get the service done for the cheapest price, they buy the service from whoever offers it for the cheapest price.
Safety in the Middle East, no problem with safety in the Middle East, at least. We're not having any problems.
Not affected by DEI anyway. I can imagine that there is another problem in the Middle East which it's a little bit a different mind here. There can be a little bit maybe too high steep gradient between captain and first officer. First officers might be too agreeable, so they don't speak up when the captain does something wrong. I was before in Ryanair, and there's no question an FO would speak up if you did something wrong as a captain there. Here, I think there is a slight risk that out of respect for my authority, the first officer might not speak up if I do a mistake.
So if you're like basically driving straight into the mountain, he might it's okay, he's the captain.
No, not that. I mean, it's not that level. But if what can I take an example? Like, let's say we get a speed limit to 10 knots, and I fly 230 knots, and because I heard 230 knots and he heard 210, but our captain is probably right. It doesn't matter so much. So it's a little bit of more allowance due to respect for mistakes from the captain, I think, here.
So if you're like doing 230 knots and you're supposed to be doing 210, do you land get a speeding ticket?
No. But
thank goodness for that. I was getting worried here, man. How much is that ticket going to cost you? Damn.
Yeah. No, but when the gradient is less, you can get a problem with a discussion about irrelevant things. It doesn't matter if we take the flaps at distance 12 or 15. It might be better to take it at 12 now because of different things. And the first officer who knows the procedure says, no, it's supposed to be at this distance. It's an irrelevant discussion because of too little gradient. Well, as sometimes it can be maybe the first officer should speak up, but he doesn't because he's just the first officer. But it's not like they're going to follow you into the ground. I mean, of course, if you make some serious mistakes, but still, small things can lead.
Do they talk up, or do they just panic and start screaming? I mean, that would get my attention.
No, but it's also up to the captain to set an atmosphere where the first officer feels he can speak up. I always start the day with saying that I want to keep our operations completely standard, and if you notice anything that is non-standard, I want to hear about it, so that he knows that he is open to tell me if I even make small procedural errors. That doesn't really matter, but it's not supposed to be that way in this company. So
where's your favorite place to fly? Where's your favorite place to fly?
You mean in terms of the flight?
Just in general over your career. Where is your favorite place to fly?
Well, I think it's the company that I'm in now is very nice to be in. You have I like it a lot. I'm a
frequent flyer guy with you guys.
Sorry?
I'm a frequent flyer with you guys, so I got my miles with you guys. So
yeah. I don't want to mention my company because we are supposed to keep it low.
Exactly, me too. Company. Yes, me too.
But I've been based in Tenerife, and that was really nice. It's really, really good place to be and nice flying. But I mean, in terms of flying, I mean, of course, military jets is more fun to fly. But also it is. Sorry?
Did you fly the Gripen?
Yeah, I did.
You did? How was that aircraft? I mean, it's supposed to be really a super elite aircraft, but it just never made international sales.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I only started. I never got to really. I started my civil career a fairly short while after starting flying the Gripen. So I have like 8 hours on it or something. That I just commenced my commercial training. Sorry.
8 hours. Okay. You just barely got a snack.
Yeah, so I can start. I could start and land it. That's it. So I don't really know how it is to use it as a weapon, but it is supposed to be very good. But one thing that I learned is that even though fly-by-wire is very good because it brings the pilot up to a very proficient level very quickly, it's also a downside of that is that you're kind of disconnected from the aerodynamics of the aircraft. The computers take care of keeping you inside the limits of what the aircraft can do, which means that you get a little bit less aware of the situation, so to say. In my old aircraft, it was a normal traditional control system, and there you had to be aware of your speed, your weight, and your limitations in another way, because you cannot just pull the stick as much as you can, because then you'll overstress the aircraft or stall it. So
when you look at the aviation industry now, are you kind of impressed, or do you follow much, where we were, let's say 7 years ago, with the new idea of, let's say the military side of it, the pilots, but now with the drone technology. Are we looking moving forward, in your opinion, where the pilot is going to become more and more irrelevant to the way that we are going to be waging, let's say, wars and even into moving into maybe a commercial type of application?
Maybe. I think when it comes to war, maybe. I mean, if you can make a fighter jet, if you can make a pilot feel that is in the, I still think the human brain is superior to computers for maybe a couple of decades more, in taking quick decisions and weigh in things, to take the correct decision in a complex situation. But you are limited by your physiology. So if you can make a pilot feel that is in the aircraft, it's actually flying an aircraft that is, hundreds of miles away, but he gets the same situation awareness and he can pull 35 Gs, then that might be a benefit in the future. I think when it comes to commercial flying, personally, I would not sit in an aircraft that's controlled by AI. I want someone who's dying with me in the flight deck if we're going to die.
I would be the same, to be honest with you. I would not even want to be in a taxi that's driving by. I just don't want. I'm with you. I prefer to have control. I'm not a geek to where I want that car to drive for me. No, thank you. I don't mind the parking though. See some kind of cool stuff in China where they park their cars in China. That's kind of cool.
I could even accept to have a car that drives by itself in maybe 50 kilometers per hour on a designated road with nothing disturbing it, so that you can have a sleep in the back seat while it's driving. But in complex traffic situation, I think it's very high risk that an automatic car will make mistakes that will kill you.
So let's bounce back now into politics. We have obviously stupidity on steroids, van der Leyen, and what's going on in Europe. They're talking something about literally using the life savings of Europeans to fund this stupid war in Ukraine. Is this making any headlines for the Europeans, or is this kind of being swept under and we're only getting it in the West?
Well, the mainstream media all set on making that war continue. The politicians and the mainstream media, they are saying that Trump and Putin are stupid. We need to make this war continue by ourselves because everything depends on this war going on. Otherwise, the earth will stop turning if that war stops. But I don't know. I think I have high hopes on Trump and Putin. I think they will come to an agreement that forces the Zelensky regime to accept some kind of peace agreement. I really hope that's the case, at least. And
I find this to be almost impossible to solve.
You think so?
Because there's just I think so, because Zelensky and what the State Department has done, combined with the way U.S. media was used, because we learned today, 90% of the media in Ukraine was USAID funded. So this was essentially, you're talking about a massive propaganda warfare against the Ukrainian people. And they've now programmed themselves to work against their own interest, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's like the cemeteries don't seem to register with them. It's like, guys, it's a losing proposition. Why are you keep going down this road? And I just don't see how they can resolve, the issues of just common sense. Because to me, Ukraine is just Israel on steroids, or vice versa. The way they treat the Russians, same as the Palestinians. And this is a key point with the Russians and Putin. You can't treat our people like you're treating the Palestinians. And how are you going to change that in Ukraine? That's why I think it's going to be very hard to resolve.
Well, if they get if the group that is controlling Ukraine gets exposed, then maybe Ukrainians realize that they are under occupation, just like United States was or is, or how. I know you think Trump is just another puppet, but I have higher hopes for Trump than you.
The funny thing with Trump is, it's like 85% of this guy I like, but that 15% with Israel, it's like it overrides almost everything because that's still our main problem.
Yeah, I agree about that. But if you see, on the surface, he's Israel's best friend. But under the table, he's cutting their funding. US aid is cut down. They start to go. If they ever release the Epstein list and operation, then that's going to be a huge stain on the Israel-US relations. So I think he kind of under the table is actually attacking Israel, while as what people see, he is the best friend of Israel. That's my theory, but I'm not 100% sure.
It's okay. I mean, that's a held theory in America. We call it the hopium theory.
Hopium, yeah.
He's paying. Yeah, he's up to 27.90. I don't know what the chess it is, and he's playing the Israelis for a long ride. It's all a game. I don't believe so, because when you're using the U.S. military, drop all these bombs on Yemen and, asking Congress now to allow him to basically declare war on Iran. This doesn't sound like you're playing hopium here. It sounds like you're kind of serious about what you're doing here, and you are really working on behalf of Israel. So a lot of people are saying, what does Israel have on Trump? And I don't think they have it on Trump. We think we have it on Ivanka.
Oh, really?
She shows up on the Epstein list.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things we don't know. I mean, but we do know that there's a lot of blackmail material in Israel National Archives.
No doubt, huh? So what do you think is going to happen then with Europe and with the Ukrainian thing? Are they really going to commit suicide here, seppuku? Or do we have maybe Orban, Fico, and Maloney? I'm not too sold on. Do we see any rationalism rising in even your country? Anything positive from your side, from your observations?
We had before Sweden Democrats who were kind of reasonable, but they have abandoned every conservative issue they had. They are now do not want to exit EU. They are happy with being in NATO, it was a con game to get Sweden into NATO. Media was tricking the Swedish people into believing that we need to be in NATO. So Sweden Democrats want to stay in NATO. They want to stay in EU. They want to send money to Ukraine. They are pro-abortion. They're not conservative anymore. They're just like the others. So I really don't know which party we would. There's no party in the parliament that is worth a vote. I don't even think it's worth voting at all, because I think it's all rigged.
I would not doubt it. In Sweden, I don't doubt it. They're too naive. You know what I mean? It's just a naive culture to me. They don't get it. Americans, we've wised up a ton, but we have a much more active, call it conspiracy, call it Patriot Radio like this. We have a much more active network of people working to expose what's going on than you have in Sweden. You don't have anything in Sweden. That's the problem. There's nobody after you guys that were really working hard to elevate the issues to Swedish people. Once you guys fell off the radar, who came? You were the last, I think.
Well, there are some alternative media, but we were exposing it more than anyone else. And I think what made us so successful was that I know a lot about the Jewish control of politics in the world, and I could expose that without saying the J word. I could just point at the whatever issue it was and ask how that benefited Sweden or the Swedish people. And my colleague, he was very well read up on Swedish politics, which I was not. So that combination made it, we could focus in on issues that made people wake up. But I think and hope that United States will show the way when Trump hopefully leads Sweden, US into a new golden age with using your vast oil reserves and protecting your own economy and make sure you get manufacturing back into United States. Then everything is going to be fantastic in United States, I think. And then people are going to look at United States and see how can Trump do that when you cannot do it with our country, So maybe it'll be a wake up after the US starts flourishing. That's my hope and belief.